Hey everybody, welcome back to One Seed, One World. So today I wanted to take you on a little garden tour and give you a garden update, and we're going to do that in a minute. I'm just sitting out here with Oliver. One thing I did want to say is that we've had two Cavaliers for quite some time, and Abby, the older Cavalier, who has been my constant companion for the last 11 years. She was with me. I mean, she didn't show up on the videos a whole lot, but she was always with me in every room. She used to love being out in the garden, especially when she was young. She passed away on Friday night, about 1:30 in the morning, going into Saturday morning. So I've been a bit of a mess for the last day or so. And Oliver's sad and mopey too, because that was his best friend. We got him about 3 years later when she was 3 and he was a puppy. But Abby used to come out of the garden when she was little and pick her own cucumbers. Cucumbers were her favorite. Pick peas and beans and all kinds of stuff. Tomatoes sometimes. And those were the years before I did the YouTube channel, so I don't really have any video of that, unfortunately. A lot of pictures over the years, but I wasn't really shooting a whole lot of video back then. But there's a big hole in my heart this morning because she was a constant fixture pretty much ever since we lived here. We got here a few months after we moved into this place, and she had a heart murmur and an enlarged heart. Got diagnosed with that a little over a year ago, and so we knew that it was coming. It's something that's normal with Cavaliers when they get older. It's something that breed always has issues with. And so her heart finally gave out on Friday night into Saturday morning, and I held her as she passed away. So I'm gonna miss her a lot. But I didn't mean to start this out on a downer, but I did want to share that and kind of let you know what was going on here. So I'm gonna try to hold it together for this video and give you some updates on what's going on in the garden. I haven't really showed anything since I planted all this stuff, I think. And I'll show you some of where the plants are now, what's growing, and some of the challenges I've had so far this season with some of the growing in the garden. So let's go take a look at that. Okay, so I'm going to start up here at the back of the house and work my way down with the different types of gardening things that we're doing. So this here behind me is a wildflower bed, is what it started out as about 3 or 4 years ago. I think this will be our 4th season. And I had this wildflower mix that I just kind of sprinkled in this area up here off the back deck and by the little gate here that comes into the backyard. And the first year, pretty much it was all cosmos that came up and a couple of sunflowers, but out of the mix, that is mainly what came up. The second year, I didn't do anything. Everything just kind of grew, and it kind of reseeded itself. So I didn't do anything. I might have added a little bit of extra dirt in there, but didn't really do anything to it. The second year, we ended up with a few cosmos, and then about 13 sunflowers, and maybe a couple of other like little random things popped up in there, like some black-eyed Susans, or Indian blanket was another one. Then last year, all of this yarrow popped up. Now, yarrow is a plant that can be used medicinally. It gets all different types of flowers on it, different colors, I should say, depending on the variety. And I have a couple of varieties in here that I'll show you, but like a kind of, I don't know, burgundy, I guess, sort of color. There's a lot of white, there's some pink. I think you can get some yellow. And yarrow has a lot of medicinal uses. The thing that you do have to be careful of is that once yarrow gets established, it really spreads and takes over. And that's kind of what's happened here. We have pretty much a bed of yarrow now. And none of the black-eyed Susans or cornflower has come up. We do have back in the back, there's some echinacea coneflower that has come up 2 years in a row now. One or two spots it's popped up. But it's interesting that this started with just like I had like a 5-pound bag of seed. Of course I didn't put all 5 pounds in here, but I just, sprinkled this whole mix. And over time, this has changed on its own without me doing anything else to it. And I'll show you a couple of the little things in here. The one other random flower that pops up in here is lupine, which it's pretty much done blooming now, but I'll show it to you here. So coming down into the next part of the garden, this is my newest project, putting in these 2 flower and herb beds and then putting in this cobblestone pathway that will be one of my soon-to-be future videos here, probably in the next week or two. I'll show you the whole process of doing this pathway with the cobblestone molds that I'm making. But in these beds, they just got put in the past week, so they're still kind of in progress. You can see some kind of the mess here, but we got a mix of stuff that is growing. Some of them, let's see, I'm not even sure, I don't remember. This is anise right here, this big tall one. There's some little flowers in here. They've been rained on. I can't read the signs. I don't know. I can't read what that says. Look, logia or something like that. You got some eucalyptus, purple basil, some lavender right there, some other of this logia or whatever the flowers are called. This one here is called tick seed, the yellow one. We got some rue. Rue can be toxic in larger amounts, but it also has been used as a cooking herb in the past. But you don't want your dogs to eat it. It's definitely not good for dogs, but Oliver doesn't seem to care about it at all, so I'm not worried about him. Some basil that I started in the basement in this past year, like back in January. And then there's some Thai basil there, lemongrass, a little bit of ice plant down there on the end, little patchouli plant, some rosemary. So, and we kind of did the same thing on both sides. We kind of got matching plants for the most part. So you can kind of see, oh, there's some horseradish over on this side. And also there is, oh man, I'm drawing a blank here. What is this? Not a leek, it's a fennel, sorry. One fennel plant that we threw in there. So this will look better once the pathway is finished up. And getting some mulch in these beds. This is still in process. The only problem I've had so far is that Oliver loves trying to eat the lemongrass. So every time he comes out here, I have to tell him, no, that's not for him. And then with this pathway, I bought 5 pounds of dwarf clover seed, and I'm going to be filling in all the cracks between the cobbles with clover, which will make it a nicer, softer pathway and also help with my not making it quite as level as it should be. But I have molds for all these paving stones, and I make them with concrete, and then once they dry, then I position them where I want them. And it goes up to our garden deck here in the back. And we've got 2 pots of strawberries right here, along with, I think there's some thyme and some plantain mixed in with them as well. This was the first year putting them in here, so we've only got like 2 or 3 strawberries off of them. And the birds tend to get to them sometimes before we do. Hopefully they will do okay though, and we will, get some strawberries next year. Okay, so right here behind me is my purple teepee beans. This is basically just a regular like green bean, except for that they are purple. It's a bush variety. Although they do get about 18 inches tall, they'll get a little bit of vines on them. I think that's about 45 centimeters for you guys that use the metric system. but they are just starting to get like little tiny purple buds on them in the top and along the sides. And so they're easier to find than like regular green beans because the purple beans really stand out. I think though that when you cook them, they turn green during cooking, like a lot of the purple foods that you can grow. It's beautiful when you grow it, but when you cook it, it just turns green. But they're very prolific and you don't have to trellis them. So if you're looking for a high producing green bean type thing that's pretty out in the garden and easier to find and pick, then try some purple TP beans. And right on the other side of the purple TP, I've got my beets. These are the beets that I transplanted out into the garden I started in the basement, most of them. There's a little smaller row right here. These I planted from seed, direct sowed, but all the rest of them are the transplants. And they really took off, did well. They looked kind of sickly there for a while. I wasn't sure if they were gonna make it, but now they've really put off some great looking greens and the beets are starting to fill out. So it shouldn't be too horribly long before I'll be able to start harvesting some beets out here. In between, you can't see it behind me, I have a little row of dill between the beans and the beets, and also an open space that I will probably, I don't know, throw in some radishes or something else in here to fill in the spot as things move along. This bed here is a whole mix. I've got spinach that's pretty much going to seed, starting to go to seed now after we had some hot days. But we did get a lot of good spinach here off of this. Next to it, I have a whole bunch of Swiss chard that I need to cut because the leaves are getting huge. But the great thing about Swiss chard is it can withstand the heat and not go to seed the way that spinach or lettuce does. So this will probably last us all summer if it's anything like last year. I got some radishes left over. I already harvested the bulk of the radishes, but these were some that just kind of got left in here, and that's what all these flowers are. And the cool thing about radishes is that if you let them go to seed, two things can happen. One, you can just harvest the little seed pods and have your own radish seed harvest that you can then replant in the fall or next year. Or they will also put off these little pods that the seeds are in, but when the pods are small, they are very tasty. And you can eat them, stir fry them, eat them raw in salads. And so if you are growing different types of radishes and want to let some just go to seed, you know, you can save seeds and then have another dual purpose of eating from your radish plant. Next to them, I've got some filterkraut cabbage. I brought this stuff out. I started the filterkraut. These were just like four little plants I stuck in here that I started in the basement back in the winter. And for weeks, they kind of barely held on and then pretty much all turned brown. I thought that they had too much shock and that they were just going to die off. And I was going to pull them out and I just didn't get around to it. And I was like, oh, I'll do it next week or something. And I came out the following week and they'd all turned green again and suddenly took off. So they went through some serious transplant shock, but now they're putting off some big, beautiful leaves. They're starting to form their little twisty heads in there, which this kind of cabbage gets a kind of like a tall, elongated head on it, unlike, you know, your standard green or purple cabbage. And so that's why I grew these, because they look pretty interesting, but they are coming along here. Then I got a bunch of heads of butter crunch lettuce in here that reseeded itself from last year, and these plants just have really gotten huge. I didn't plant this at all. This is just all self-seeding, leftover stuff that fell off when it went to seed last year. Got a little dill plant in here, and then I had a leftover tomatillo, so I stuck it in here, and it's really taken off, getting some like little buds on it, little blossoms. I don't see any little tomatillos forming yet, but got the flowers in there, so we're off to a good start. Onions, these were the ones that got tore up by the mouse in the basement and then, you know, I kind of put through hell before bringing them out. But I did transplant them, and they, you know, went through some transplant shock. I did not harden them off, so they struggled a little bit for a while. But, you know, now they're starting to fill out and get some good greens on them, and the spaces are getting thicker. So there'll be a later crop of onions, but we will get some onions this year, just not as much as last year because so many of them got destroyed by the mouse in the basement. And then I've got another big butter crunch lettuce that's starting to pop up and getting ready to go to seed here soon. This was another self-seeding that ended up in this bed somehow that I left growing there. Down here I've got my 3 big zucchini plants. They're not to the point where I can start trying to stake them up yet, but mixed in with them I've got some cilantro, I've got nasturtiums mixed in all through here because I heard that nasturtiums can help deter the squash bugs and squash vine borers. And so I just kind of threw in all these random seeds. I think there might even be some dill if it didn't get, dill may have gotten shaded out for the most part. Oh, here's one little one. But I just threw in some extra herbs and stuff to grow in and around the zucchini to see if that would help anything with bug pressure. So we'll see how that goes. Got some hay bales here that I'm gonna, I was gonna put it around my potatoes, but my potatoes are kind of have taken off. These were those old blue and yellow potatoes I had left over from last year in a bucket in the garage that I mentioned on a previous video that I stuck in this bed, and man, they seem to really like this bed. Got a few blossoms up on there, but that have popped up, but no significant blossoms really. Here's a cilantro that reseeded itself from last year and has now gone to seed, so I'll get some coriander seeds off of this. And then in here I've got mostly poblano peppers, and I think I have a couple of banana peppers mixed in here too. And well, I guess I will just walk over here. Rose bush that gets little yellow roses on it early in the spring. That's been here since the chicken run used to be up here. This used to grow on the edge of the chicken run. There's also some weird tree growing up in here I need to cut out. But it goes up over this hoop. And then down here I've got Cherokee Trail, I think it's Cherokee Trail of Tears. These really struggled. Something, when they first sprouted, loved the leaves and was just eating the leaves away. I don't know what it was. I never saw a bug on here when I was checking them, but something was just munching away, and I didn't think they were going to make it, but they're now starting to make a comeback. And if they continue to do well, they will fill up the other side of this hoop that will come up over here. Which brings us down to my 3 boxes where I used to try the artichokes, but this year I had some Roma tomatoes. These are determinate tomatoes, so you know they don't need quite the trellising. They only get about 3 feet high or so, and you just can stake them or something for a little extra support. So I stuck them in these boxes, and so far they are doing well. No tomatoes yet, but we're starting to get blossoms now. You can see down in here. So we've had a cooler spring for the most part. I mean, we did have some hot days, some days in the high 80s and even hit 90 a couple of days, but overall we've had a lot of days in the high 70s, very low 80s, and like 50s and 60s at night. In fact, a few days ago when I got up in the morning, it was 44 degrees outside, which I thought was kind of ridiculous for the end of May, but you know, it was just one night. So up here is a big mess of, I guess, crabgrass. I didn't really do anything with this area because you can kind of see mixed in here are potatoes. These are potatoes that were left over from last year, ones that I guess I missed when I was harvesting. So they sprouted a bunch of new plants randomly, and so I just left them. But I got to clean the crabgrass out and then get some hay or the straw mixed in to help mulch up around these, and we'll get some more potatoes down through here. And then oh, I also threw an okra seed right in this bare spot, so we'll see if it comes up. Down on this part here, these are also potatoes, but these are from my true potato seed, that TPS. If you saw my TPS videos where I saved my own potato seed and started it, they didn't do a whole lot of anything last year. I think I got like a little handful of, you know, marble-sized potatoes, but there must have been a bunch left right in here, and so now they've sprouted. So it'll be interesting to see if I get maybe a harvest out of them this year, and we'll get to taste whatever my new type of potato is that would have been developed by the pollination of two different species, or not species, but two different varieties of potato that came out of that seed. And on this end, last year I had some celosia and I think a few zinnia in here, and the celosia has definitely reseeded itself. It hasn't really grown too much yet because it's really fighting because there's so many of them in there. But you know, maybe by mid-end summer I'll have a little flower patch going on here, because I do have celosia gone through this pathway. These were ones I started in the basement, and they were having a rough time, but they've all kind of bloomed. Normally my celosia gets, you know, a couple feet tall, 3 feet tall, and hopefully these will still grow more even though they've got flowers on them already, because they were already starting to flower in the pots before I got around to getting them out here. I got one that's standing up much taller than all the rest of them, but we'll see what happens. Coming down into the back garden now, we got the new hoop that I put in this area. It's growing the scarlet runner beans. Something's been eating on those leaves too. But they are starting to really take off and already working their way up. Some of the ones that are a little ahead of the others, but they these will fill in this hoop, and probably by, you know, in the next month this hoop will be completely covered in green vines with beans and flowers and stuff, and we'll make a nice little hoop for walking down into the garden. My awapui plants from last year that were put in the basement over the winter, I don't think they're gonna make it. They've never really improved. The one in the back is pretty much all but died off, and this one is trying to hang on but has not done well since it's about into the basement and back. So this area here behind me is just off the back of the garden deck. I've kind of called it Maple Hill because this is where the big maple used to be that was cut down, and I've used a bunch of the logs from it to kind of make a retaining wall, because this was all a big heap of the stump grindings that was piled up, I don't know, a good 3 or 4 feet high. It came almost to the back of the deck railing, just full of dirt and, you know, the chips that they had ground up when they were grinding out the stump. So I raked it all out, and when I was putting those new flower beds with the pathway up at the front of the garden, and I was digging out all the grass to put in those flower beds. Well, I transplanted all that grass down here. I kind of did it like almost like sod cuttings, and laid it all on the edge of this hill to help hold the dirt in place. Fortunately, it rained for like 3 days after I put this in, so it really established well. It's already growing. I haven't cut it yet because I still want to make sure that it's, you know, gonna hang out and grow well here. But I probably actually could mow at this point. I've even got like clover flowers and everything popping up in here. But the retaining wall has done a really good job. And then back around the Zelkova tree that we planted to replace the maple, I've got straw flower growing and a bunch of zinnias, and I've even put some sunflowers in here, but they were old seeds and any two have popped up and they're looking kind of rough, so I don't know if I'll get a row of sunflowers here. But all around the tree I've got these other flowers that should fill in nicely, I think, by midsummer. All right, we're finally to the back garden. First bed is my big oregano patch, which I will be trimming down and harvesting and drying over the next couple of days. I also have some dill plants that reseeded themselves from last year. It's a great thing about dill, you know, it reseeds itself pretty much every year. It'll get these pretty flowers on it that will, like this one here, will be blooming soon. And that attracts a lot of good beneficial pollinators and predatory bugs to your garden that will help fight the bad bugs. And then this little stick down here, I planted a okra. I had a bunch of okra seeds that I sprouted inside, so I kind of stuck them in random areas and a couple bare spots I had out here. And so that was just done, I think, on Thursday, so I'm a little behind on some of this stuff. This bed will be the cucamelon bed. Cucamelons just got planted on Thursday as well, so I was a couple weeks behind with those, and they take a little while to get going, but hopefully this will become my cucamelon wall by August. This bed here is one of the original wooden beds I put in about 6 or 7 years ago that now has fallen apart, and that will be a upcoming video as well. I'm going to be replacing this bed with a bed I make out of fence pickets, and so I'll show you that video. But right now it's just weeds, burdock, and I don't know what these things are, but you know, just leftover kind of weedy junk. I'll clean this out once I build the bed, and this will become my new hoop bed where I'll be planting kale and cabbages for the fall. Behind it are the elderberry, which I had trimmed down to only about 3.5 to 4 feet tall back in end of February, and now you can see they are probably a good 12 feet tall or so. They don't take long to recover and start growing again. You want to definitely prune them back each year because they will take off. But they are already getting all the blossoms and stuff on them, so I'm happy about that. Back here, we got some more scarlet runner beans growing up over these hoops, a little patch of dill, and then the different varieties of tomatoes I have in here. Got some Dr. Weechee yellow, some bread and salt, some Cherokee purple. There's a whole mix across these 3 rows, and while I don't have any tomatoes yet, they are starting to now really get taller. I've pruned them a couple of times. They're getting blossoms on them. This here looks like it's a weed. I know it's a dandelion, but it's a pink dandelion. I planted some pink dandelion seeds to try, and this was the only one that survived, or actually sprouted, I should say. So I transplanted out here in this bed, and we're going to leave it here and see if we get some pink dandelions next year. I don't think they blossom their first year when you plant them from seed, so we'll see what happens. More dill, more cilantro that has gone to seed. And then down here I got some of those black sesame that I planted in the basement and transplanted out here. They've kind of been struggling a little bit. I think I waited too long to transplant them out because they're a little kind of curvy and stuff, but they are getting some like little blossoms on them. Supposedly they're supposed to get 3 feet tall, but I don't know if these will actually end up doing that. More scarlet runners, more tomatoes. All the same varieties that I mentioned. The only 2 varieties I did not mention for the tomatoes is I do have some cherry tomatoes out here, some Chadwick cherry, and also some Sunrise Bumblebee, it's called. It's a yellow cherry tomato. This one right here is a mushroom basket, which is not a cherry variety, it's a large slicer variety, but it was another new variety I wanted to try this year, and this one's really taken off well so far, just starting to get blossoms again. So that's all the 3 big beds back here. It's pretty much just beans and tomatoes, and then I'll be adding also some basil, excuse me, some basil back in here as well. More reseeded dill, and this bed will also have 4 okra in it. I planted the seeds I sprouted. I actually mixed the seeds together. I think I did some orange jing and another one called heavy hitter. So I don't know what seeds I ended up putting in the ground, but I had multiple sprouts, seeds that had sprouted when I soaked them for a couple of days in water. And so we'll see what ones pop up and what comes through. Got some tomatillos over here on this end of the bed and some eggplant, but the eggplants this year are really struggling. They did not handle the transplant so well, and they've been really attacked by probably flea beetles. So they're really struggling, but we'll see if maybe they can come out and do a little bit better as time goes on. I'll probably add some, I still have some leftover rabbit poop that I'll probably put around them and see if that helps, and some mulch. And back in here I've got some green bell peppers, some banana peppers I think. Look, I actually have a little banana pepper on that one right there. It's coming in. And I think somewhere in here I've got the daddle pepper, that one that's like 300,000 on the Scoville scale. That's mixed back in here somewhere, I think. And then this poor bed. This bed was my cucumbers. And I was growing a new variety called Angash Market, but I did not start them from seed inside like I normally do. I just direct sowed them, and they got about a ½ inch tall, where I just got their first, like the cotyledons came out. They didn't even get their first true leaves yet, and something came along and ate all of them. So today I'll be planting another batch of cucumbers, but I'm going to start them in pots away from this area until they can get strong enough to survive, where I can transplant them out. And hopefully I will get a late cucumber harvest. It's just going to be way later than normal, but you can still plant cucumbers in June, so we'll see how that goes. And then this last bed is the leftover bed, where I kind of stick things that I didn't have room for. This area does not get quite as much sunlight as the rest of the places in the garden, but it does get a few hours of sunlight a day, and I'd have grown peppers and stuff over here in the past. So I do have some peppers in here, some leftover banana peppers, and the other leftover daddle pepper, the hot one. Some random leftover tomatoes that may or may not make it. And then on this one, I actually have a different, what's it, San Marzano Roma tomatoes. I got one on each end that my sister gave us. And unlike a lot of your Romas, the San Marzano is indeterminate, so it does need some trellising and will keep growing up. And I have one cucumber plant that reseeded itself from last year, because this was my cucumber patch last year. And that is it's not the Angash Market, it's the EF. What does the EF stand for? Holy cow, I forgot already. I'm sorry, I forgot the variety. It's the same ones I've grown the last 2 or 3 years, and I always just write EF cucumber, but I can't remember what EF stands for. It's not ever, oh, forget it. I don't remember. I'll put the name up on the bottom of the screen, because I can't remember. Okay guys, so that was the garden tour. I know this video is probably longer than it should be, so hopefully some of you stuck around to see the whole thing. And I also know it's probably a little bit more subdued than what I normally do. I just, with Abby crossing that rainbow bridge the other night, I don't have quite the energy to do my norm, you know. I've got, you know, these other projects and stuff, but I'm just not feeling it. And so, but I did want to get an updated video out and show you kind of where the garden was at now. So thanks for bearing with me through this video, if you did. And if you didn't, then you won't be seeing this part of the video anyway. But I hope whatever's going on in your neck of the woods and in your gardens or homesteads, whatever you're doing, I hope that it's growing fantastically for you and that you are having a good gardening season. Like I said, I will have some updated project videos and more growing videos and plant videos coming up, of course, this summer as we go along. So appreciate that you're here hanging out with me again today. We will see you again soon. Have a great day. Namaste. And hug your fur babies. What do you want? Tell Dad what you want. You want green beans? Green beans. What do you want? Tell Daddy. Use your words. What you want? You gotta tell Daddy with your words. Oh, I think Abby took both of those. Oliver didn't get any. There you go.
Because Oliver doesn't get the whole button thing. Only Abby does. Abby, what you want?
Use words.
Tell Daddy. Tell me.
Right here.
You gotta hit
You
it.
have to hit the button.
Come on, hit it.
Right here.
There you go.